Thank you.
Now we are going back to Senate Bill 6105. And Susan, if you could give us the staff report.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Susan Jones, committee staff. Senate Bill 6105 is an act relating to creating safer working conditions in adult entertainment establishments. It's sponsored by Senator Saldana and others. By way of background, in 2019, you passed certain laws regarding adult entertainment establishments and entertainers, and required L&I to create training for entertainers and provide certain panic buttons and certain lists regarding customers. A Liquor and Cannabis Board rule effectively prohibits the sale of alcohol in these establishments because of prohibited activities it identifies for premises holding a liquor license. In that 2019 bill, you had a advisory committee, and it provided a report to the legislature in 2020, recommending to the legislature to legalize the service of alcohol in the establishments, require mandatory training for all staff. The other one was just for the entertainers, to eliminate the practice of charging back rent to entertainers, and to set minimum security staffing. Under the bill, an adult entertainment establishment must provide certain training to its employees and include topics such as preventing sexual harassment, conflict de-escalation, and first aid. Makes changes to the requirements for panic buttons to make them accessible in the rooms where an entertainer may be alone with a customer, and to provide certain information annually to the L&I about those, and have a written process and procedure for submitting accusations regarding customers, responding to violence and criminal activity, and ejecting customers. It requires that they have one security person during business hours, and then that they have no other duties between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. They must provide certain supplies and restrict minors. And there are certain restrictions on and requirements regarding fees they charge to entertainers. They must not refuse to provide a written notice stating the reasons for terminating an entertainer or refusing to rehire them. The bill prevents state agencies and local governments from adopting regulations that limit an entertainer from collecting payment from customers, and that restrict an entertainer's proximity to others before and during a performance if there's no sexual contact. The local governments may provide more protective regulations. And finally, it prevents the Liquor and Cannabis Board from issuing a liquor license and requires suspension of the license if an establishment receives an L&I citation for a violation of laws related to these entertainers and establishments and has not abated the violation. A fiscal note was requested but not available. Are there any questions?
Well, I don't see any questions, but I see Senator Saldana. It is your day. Would you like to present your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill before you builds on and creates a lot of the same spirit and intent of a piece of legislation that had strong support from this chamber, from this committee, and from the Senate. The purpose of this bill is to make sure that legal establishments in the state of Washington are safe for workers. And so what this bill does is make sure that in the adult entertainment industry that was particularly hit hard during COVID, that we have before us 3 sections. So it's structured a little bit differently, but still has much of the same intent. The first section is really about training and prevention. It's about making sure that the entire workforce is trained up on safety measures, on understanding their rights, making sure that we are making sure that they understand about trafficking, and making sure that this establishment is one that is anti-trafficking, and that people know the signs. The second section of the bill is really around making sure that there's not worker exploitation, and that workers are able to have economic freedom and be able to earn and have agency in their place, and making sure that it's a safe working place. And the third section then is based on those first 2 being met and complied with, and so there's additional enforcement built into this bill than last year, then would allow, because right now it's allowed. Alcohol is not in statute that we have we've never passed a law saying that there couldn't be alcohol in an establishment like this, but LCB does have on the books a WAC that, based on our sections of 1 and 2, creating safeguards on safety, that would merit for that WAC to be reconsidered and be met really by the purpose of creating safety in this workplace. Are there questions for me? I'm happy to answer, but I know we have a really robust panel that will.
A very long list of people. So let's get to the testimony. I don't see any questions for you, Senator. Go ahead, Senator Conway.
Good news here. Everyone's here. Looks like
No.
a few remote on other, but Madison Zakwu, Casey Champion, Lexi Bove, and Eva Bhagwanath, all present.
And we are a little tight. We will have until 12:30. So if you could be as brief as possible, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, Chair Kaiser and committee. My name is Madison Zakwu. I am a dancer and I'm also the campaign manager for Strippers Are Workers, the group of hundreds of dancers in every club across the state that is advocating for change in our workplaces by spearheading SB 6105. Because so far, club owners and many in our community haven't done it for us. However, we are here today backed by numerous labor, anti-violence, and women's organizations and allies. Dancers are a marginalized workforce, partly being sex workers, partly because we are mostly of minority demographics, ultimately deemed unworthy of fundamental rights. Our industry was previously legislated in such a way that causes harm, and we need you to right those wrongs. Today's policy is developed from 6 years of grassroots organizing and structured on that L&I recommendation report that was created by our 2019 bill. You'll hear today Washington's industry is broken. It relies on charging dancers high fees and cutting corners on staffing and security for profit. Since COVID, our conditions have worsened. Clubs are empty of customers, but overstaffed with dancers. Our fees have increased, and many of us rely on our partners to pay rent. Being denied rights and financial stability in our work makes us more vulnerable to coercion and trafficking. Dancers in clubs will either be granted a pathway to sustainable work environments, or dancers will continue to be harmed, either inside unregulated clubs or surviving outside of them. We are the dancers working and organizing in these clubs, knowing what needs to change, and we are asking that you stand with us to make our work safer.
Thank you very much, Madison. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you all for hearing us. My name is Lexi Bovee, and I am here to ask you to support this strong anti-trafficking bill, SB 6105. I started dancing in 2016 and have navigated and survived exploitation in the adult entertainment industry. In this current climate, there are fewer customers and less economic resources, so Washington state clubs are at a crossroads. Either clubs will get safer for everyone, or will they become increasingly less safe? This bill can create an environment that minimizes coercion and exploitation thanks to the potential oversight and safety requirements. Protections include mandatory security and training for all staff around identifying and helping prevent harm, equitable contracts affirming our agency of when, how, where, and who we work with, decriminalizing non-sexual conduct like taking money before a dance, performing on stage, or dictating proximity to customers, and ending local governing regulations that harm dancers. This empowers us to advocate for ourselves without fear of criminalization. I have worked in both Portland and New Orleans, which have top-notch security, nominal house and rental fees, and funding and regulation from alcohol sales. Having experienced safer and lucrative working environments in those states, I know that it is possible here too. Dancers need to know that we're going to walk into a safe and lucrative working environment without fear of exploitation. Without the protections from this bill, clubs will remain unsafe and stigmatized. This low-barrier job gave me instant agency over my work and my life by lifting me out of debt and gave me flexibility in managing my disabilities. I started organizing with SAW in 2018 in hope for positive legislative change for an industry that's been so life-changing for me, and I'm asking for your help to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Casey Champion, and for 13 years, I worked in strip clubs in the Seattle area. Dancing was truly a one-of-a-kind career. As independent contractors, dancers are in full control of our own business. We decide when we work and who we work with, giving the most marginalized of us the opportunity to build a business that works truly for our unique needs. This freedom meant the world to me at a time when I needed to stay in school and support my family. Thanks to dancing, I'm proud to say that I am not only working in my dream field as a professor of computer science at the University of Washington, but every single member of my family is housed, fed, and debt-free, the first time in our family's history. However, in the current industry, we pay high rent fees to work, as much as $200 a shift, not including the other fees that we pay to clubs. This means that if clubs are slow, as they have been post-pandemic, dancers can end a shift owing money to clubs, a practice called back rent. In Washington, dancers are the only significant source of revenue for the club, and in addition, we are expected to tip out staff. If we do not, we are often left without security and club support. Washington is unique, as every other state in the country allows alcohol service, thus reducing the financial burden on dancers. Right now, dancers have so few protections, we carry the burden of the industry, which often puts us in harm's way. Without standardized practices, club policies can vary per manager, per dancer, per day, which puts the most marginalized of us, like dancers of color, and those who stand up against club practices, vulnerable to discrimination and retaliation. SB 6105 puts an end to these practices by establishing a fair, consistent, and accountable contract between dancers and the clubs they work in. Dancing enabled me to live the American dream of upward mobility. Please help us ensure the same opportunity is available for workers of all color by supporting SB 6105.
Thank you, Kelsey. Eva.
Hello, my name is Ava. I started working at strip clubs in 2018, and I want to tell you about the experience that made me quit dancing in Washington and start organizing with SAW. One of the last nights I worked in Washington, I gave a man 3 lap dances, but when he didn't have the cash to pay, we went to the manager to run his card. After his card declined, he became aggressive, yelling that he had already paid me when everyone there knew that wasn't true. He then called his friend group over to all surround me and try to bully me into not accepting payment. The only other staff person working, a new waitress, started yelling at the men to leave and tried to physically push them out of the club. The manager watched and did nothing. There was no security. I was worried for my safety, and I knew at the end of the night I would still have to pay out house fees. After the men eventually left without paying, the manager said it was my fault for not accepting the payment up front, which is actually currently illegal in Washington. Then other dancers working told me that they recognized the men because they had actually done the same thing a few nights prior, and the manager's response was no different. This never would have happened if customer blacklists were actually maintained and followed, or we had the mandatory security and staff training that SB 6105 requires. Now, I work at a bikini coffee stand hoping to dance again soon. My customers often tell me to work in Portland instead, saying how great those clubs are for dancers and clients alike, so much so that they choose to drive the 180 miles rather than patronize a local club. The unique flexibility and control dancing has given me over my schedule and my boundaries made working with chronic illness possible. The long commute to Portland makes dancing less accessible, but it's my only choice without compromising my safety. I want to work in my home state, but I need this bill to pass in order for me to do so safely. So I urge you to support SB 6105. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you, very much. Senator Conway.
We now have a remote panel of Scott Ash, Lindsay Hooer, and Jerry Mumo.
So is Scott on deck here, coming up with the Zoom? Let's see.
I think so, yes. Maybe say the name one more time.
Can you prompt her
Ash,
again, or him?
Lindsay Hooer, and Jerry Mumo.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I'm Lindsay Hooer. I'm here on behalf of the Association of Washington Cities. We're signed in other on this bill. We do not have a position on the majority of this bill. Our only concern is as to the preemption language. And so you may be wondering, why would cities want to regulate the distance between a dancer and a patron? This issue has actually been around for a number of years. When cities started to put in these regulations, it was litigated heavily in terms of whether or not cities could implement these regulations. And each time the courts found that local government regulations of the distance between a patron and a dancer is allowable to protect against the instances of public sexual contact during the dances that had been occurring, even though public sexual content was legal then as it is now. And it's not just the public sexual contact, rather. Cities had adopted distance regulations to limit illegal drug sales that had been occurring. If two people are closer together, it's obviously easier to control or easier to protect against seeing the drug and money transfers. And so the language that we have in here that says that the subsection cannot be construed to prohibit a local government from adopting the ordinances that are more protective of the entertainers, we see that as really ambiguous because looking at that saying, well, is it more protective? Or some people might say that it's actually more restrictive of the dancers. And so, kind of the question in terms of how would you actually answer that question? So we're just asking that the preemption language be removed. Otherwise, we don't have a position on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure you can have a conversation with the prime sponsor about your proposal. Thank you. Go ahead with Lindsay? No, with
That was
Scott?
Lindsay.
That was Lindsay. Now we're going to Jerry.
Alexis Scott, I believe.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Okay, I see. I have Ash. Okay, go
Yes.
ahead. Alexa or Ash?
Good morning, committee and chair. My name is Alexa, and I've been with SAW since 2020, and I'm a dancer as of 2018. Like many other women, dancing has allowed me to financially climb, pay off my student loans, and give myself an artistic platform. In May of 2023, my club's room fees increased between 100 and 200%, but our customer count didn't. Dancers who had been there for 15 years left altogether. A few of us left to travel dance because of these increased fees. But the constant 6-hour drives back and forth to Portland and being away from our families became exhausting, and we returned to our club despite these high fees and low customer counts. Many nights, my coworkers walked out with nothing, and we would have conversations reminiscing on the club pre-pandemic and how maybe out-of-state dancing was worth the mental and physical load. But only 4 months later, the only club in Spokane and where I began my dancing career permanently closed, a club that's been open since 1987. The club's ability to stay afloat relied entirely on the dancers' payout, but it wasn't enough to stop the closure. Now I have to travel to other states to do what I love. And in fact, I'm in Portland right now. Dancing is my monetary lifeline. I know I'm not alone from the other Spokane dancers struggling in situations far worse than mine. While traveling sustains me, being away from my life in Washington is physically, mentally, and emotionally taxing. It's not a long-term solution. Every day I wish I could go to work as I normally did prior to the closure. Despite the attempts to save the club from closing, the burden of keeping it open was put entirely on the dancers. Washington clubs need a more sustainable model to rely on, and SB 6105 is capable of providing that and will hold current clubs accountable. Thank you, and please vote to pass SB 6105.
Thank you for connecting with us, Alexa. I appreciate it. And Jerry Muma? Remote?
She needs to unmute.
Jerry, please unmute.
Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair Kaiser and committee members. My name is Jerry Muma, and I reside in District 10, Olympia. I am a Native American woman. I am Shoshone Bannock. I'm a survivor of CSEC and a survivor of exploitation through the adult entertainment industry. I worked for over a decade in Deja Vu, and I want you to know that I signed in other on this bill, and I completely support all of the safety measures that have been put forth. But I do not support subsection or section 2, subsection 11. That needs to be changed to comply with current criminal law. Also, section 2, subsection 9. Where it strips the ability for local cities and to have any ordinance over this. And I also, subsection 2 needs to include human trafficking training and on the blacklist for any human trafficking recruiting attempts that have happened. I want to point out to you that what was passed in 2019, the RCW 4917470 7A subsection 2, really lines it out, touching, caressing, fondling, entertainment's own intimate body parts and genitals and those of another person with the intent to sexually arouse or excite.
We've lost your audio. We've lost your audio. Can you hear me?
She needs to unmute again.
You need to unmute.
Is customers do not
We cannot hear you.
see of the dancers, even if there's signs.
She may need to increase her volume.
And I want to.
Can you increase your volume? I don't think she can
Or she
hear
could
me.
maybe not have her speaker on.
I don't think she's hearing me. I'm sorry, but no, we lost you, but we've also lost. We can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, apparently we lost your volume, but we have also lost our time. So could you submit your comments in writing, please?
Yes, can I please end with a quick quote? It's an 18-year-old dancer, and she said, "When I was first started as a dancer in the club, was very shy and had a lot of boundaries. The older dancers quickly schooled me, and I learned that I had to change. And within the VIP room, anything goes. And I feel my body is only a commodity. Please look at this bill and take the protections and pass that. And I urge you to take a look at the sections I have spoken of. Thank you so much for your time."
That completes Jerry's testimony. Hopefully she can submit her testimony in writing as well, since we lost some of it. Senator Conway, can you call the next folks forward?
Well, we did not hear from Scott Ash, but we
Yes,
do.
we did. Her name was Ash, something else
The
than
next
Ash.
panel is Erica and Andrea. We heard from Alexa, I
No,
believe.
Rebecca Fondon.
Rebecca Fondon, Isaac Castema.
Castema, right. And it was Ashley Scott, is where it was. Ashley Scott. She spoke. Well, you must be Rebecca.
I am. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Rebecca Fondon. I currently reside in Seattle, Washington. I am a survivor of human sex trafficking out of Seattle, Washington. I'm a Ways Forward member, and I am a student at the Evans School of Public Policy receiving my master's degree.
Can you tell me what WAYS stands for, please?
Ways Forward. Ways Forward is, excuse me. Ways Forward.
WASE means, what does it
Excuse me?
stand for? WASE?
Washington Against Sexual Exploitation.
Thank you.
Yes. So I signed in for other on this bill. I want you to know that I commend the work that the dancers have put into creating this bill to ensure safety for entertainers. To reiterate some of the points that Jerry made, I fully support the measures in this bill, but I have some similar concerns that I want to address. This definition in Section 2, subsection 11 should be changed to comply with criminal statutes. Section 2, subsection 9 must be taken out because it preempts local ordinances, as stated before. A bill passed in 2019 that allows intimate touching, but the local ordinances have kept in place distance requirements between customers and dancers that have legally worked to prevent this. There was a study done in Portland in 2018 that surveyed dancers about their experiences at work. 84% experienced sexual assault, 53 experienced sexual violence, excuse me. Washington proximity laws can keep dancers safer. In my experience, physical touching of my body while dancing led to unwanted sexual encounters many times. Safety measures must be kept in place to prevent this. Section 2, subsection 2 must include human trafficking identification and response training. I watched the current human trafficking training online, and it has the definition of human trafficking, what that is, and the hotline number. If I didn't know anything about recruitment or anything like that, which does happen in clubs, it's a prime place for that, recruiting and, trafficking in general. I think that training needs to be revamped so that dancers have a true and clear understanding of how to identify a situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. If you have testimony in writing, please submit it. Go ahead, Isaac.
Good morning. Isaac Castema on behalf of the Expressive Rights Alliance. Following the L&I committee, the 5 owner groups in the state formed the Expressive Rights Alliance to continue a dialogue about implementing those recommendations. And it has been a great privilege to facilitate much of the dialogue between clubs and entertainers on this legislation and see a path forward. I want to acknowledge that we've heard some very powerful testimony from entertainers in their fight over multiple sessions for recognition and respect. And I'd like to thank the committee, particularly Senator Saldana, for being open to this conversation, which we do believe is very important, and moving a similar bill last year. Washington has the fewest number of adult entertainment establishments per capita in the country, and that number has been shrinking. There is only one establishment outside of King County, so when we consider the impact of ordinances, it is relatively narrow, given where the industry is located today. This fall, one establishment opened its doors to lawmakers and to regulators, and we hosted a tour, and we invited a very transparent conversation about the industry. I want you to know that establishments are broadly supportive of the concepts in this bill. There are some reservations and uncertainty about the implementation of rules. There's a reference to wage payment requirement enforcement that may not be compatible with current practices for estimating entertainer earnings. There's also a desire for greater clarity on expectations from the physical security requirement and the type of training, whether that's electronic or guided, that is expected and feasible within 30 days of a new hire. We will share written comments. I would just close by acknowledging these are complex subjects. There's not always a clear applicable precedent from like-minded industries, but most states have figured out ways to do this that I think have better outcomes than we have in Washington. So we remain optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Senator King has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, do you know, is Washington the only state that does not allow the serving of alcohol in these establishments?
Based on a survey that was done, we believe that's true. There's been some disagreement whether there's 1 or 2 other states that don't. Most states have a framework for alcohol. It varies dramatically among states. One of the questions we have about this bill. Some states have a bring your own beer policy. Some states have a different rules related to alcohol consumption, but most states find a way to do that. I was just looking at Utah yesterday, which is often discussed as a model around, blood alcohol level. Even they have a model for allowing alcohol in adult entertainment establishments, and they have more per capita than we do. So there you go.
Not touching that one. Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you both for your testimony. Senator Conway.
I have Erica R., Alexa S., and Andrea L. on a panel here.
And
Alexa S. has already
call the other
testified.
people forward. We're running down to about 1 minute per person,
And
given
the next
time
panel
available.
would be Ava Marie Morel, KJM, and Ariana Z. And finally, Kiori Moses. There we are.
Well,
Alexa
I don't
S. has
see any
already
people coming
testified.
forward.
Alexis S. has already testified, but the rest of the people.
Folks who've signed in to testify in person include Andrea L., Amy Marie Merrill,
Andrea is-
KJM, Ariana Z., Coriandra Moses.
You repeated some names, so you said them twice, like maybe they got signed in twice for like the first section.
I'm just asking for anybody who has personal testimony to come forward. Okay,
Andrea
let's
is
start with the
remote
person
as well.
who's there already. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Erica. I am a former Washington stripper and part of SAW. I began stripping after being hospitalized for my mental health at a time when I could not maintain the hours or demands of a more traditional day job due to the intensive therapy program I was entering. Stripping allowed me to support myself, establish financial independence, and develop interpersonal skills while working hard to improve my mental health. However, the club I danced at did not have security staff or any significant security measures in place. There were customers who felt entitled to push physical boundaries with me and other dancers because of a lack of consequences. Management protected some of these bad customers because they tipped the manager. I had to fend for myself in this work environment, often having to verbally and physically struggle with customers. In contrast, I had the pleasure of dancing at a club in Portland on a couple of occasions which had dedicated security staff that were looking out for bad behavior by customers. Because security was their whole job, they were motivated to keep dancers safe by frequently checking in on dances and maintaining a physical presence that reminded customers of the rules. The bill proposed by SAW would instate dedicated security guards, panic buttons, customer blacklists, and agency oversight into Washington clubs and would significantly increase the safety of Washington dancers.
That was excellent. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Ariana Zimmer, and I am a dancer with SAW. I've been dancing in Washington and Oregon for 2 years. It's a special job for me, the first job where I can truly express myself to the fullest. However, I've experienced sexual harassment while working by a long-term staff member of my club. Not only did I feel uncomfortable pressure, but I was led to believe I had to tolerate it. For me and other dancers to be safe, we need both dancers and club staff to be trained. This bill would give dancers the training on their rights as workers and recourse to file complaints, empowering us to advocate for ourselves, with Washington law backing us up. But also the bill would require training staff on topics like anti-sexual harassment and conflict de-escalation, creating a higher standard of employee conduct that fosters dancer protection. I would love to feel more safe and secure in my home state and be able to go back home after work instead of paying for travel and overnight stays in Oregon. We just want what any other worker would want for a job that they're passionate about. Supporting our bill would help solve so many issues we're experiencing at work regarding safety while being an agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is KJ. I'm an Army veteran, senior dancer in Oregon, Texas, and formerly Washington. Additionally, I'm an advocate for adult entertainers and SB 6105. The current model for adult entertainment venues lacks security, endangering dancers like myself. Washington venues lack dedicated security staff, making us the first point of contact for safety issues. Due to the absence of security, dancers often find ourselves addressing customer issues without trained support. I speak to this issue as a former victim of violence in an experience where another dancer required my personal intervention to de-escalate an aggressive customer who was upset that she would not go home with him after her shift was completed, putting both of our safety at risk. Management may intervene, but they lack the necessary training in security and conflict resolution. This jeopardizes our well-being and contributes to an unsafe work environment. In contrast, clubs outside of Washington prioritize dancer safety with well-equipped security personnel. With this model, dancers hardly ever see the issues that arise in clubs and definitely don't have to be the first line of defense for them. SB 6105 is crucial. It ensures that staffs receive de-escalation training, guarantees security, and equips us with access to workplace safety. Let's prioritize the safety of those adults or those in adult entertainment in Washington. Thank you for considering.
Thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you.
Now, I'm still a little confused if we have other people who signed in, and the names I have are Kiora. I'm sorry.
That would be me. I am also KJ, Kioriandra.
Oh, that's also KJ.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
All right, you signed in twice. Okay, that's understandable. I can
And
understand
Andrea's
that.
on remote right now, if you want
Who's
her to
on
speak.
remote?
Andrea?
Andrea, come on. Come on, Andrea. I have you as an in-person testifier, but come forward on remote.
Thank you. I'm Andrea, a dancer of SAW, and I've been dancing for 1.5 years in Seattle. This bill, SB 6105, can mean a lot to people of color such as myself who face discrimination in the clubs very often. I've seen dancers of color be forced to tip out, yelled at, and talked down to the point that they're crying, myself included. For example, large tips are demanded by the DJ every shift, whether or not the dancer has made any money. Any protest to this is met with retaliation against the dancers, especially dancers of color, like by messing with their music, their dances, or being verbally abusive. Despite the many complaints over the years for his behavior, he has not been fired or reprimanded by management. Discrimination from employees at my club has made me feel so unprotected that I needed to start another job to avoid the discrimination. This bill would help me and other dancers like me, and we need employees to be properly trained around conduct and for dancers to be informed of their rights on things like tipping practices. Also, having equitable dancer contracts and fee enforcement will prevent discrimination. And see, the time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you for your patience as we got through this day. And I want to thank all the participants today in this hearing.